Hi everyone, welcome to the Life They Live podcast, the podcast dedicated to passions. I'm the host, Nina, and today I'm having a conversation with Nancy Schwartz, who's passionate about the life she's created as a transformational health retirement strategist. Her mission is to disrupt the way we think about retirement. So, this episode, of course, is for you if you are starting to plan your retirement, but you have questions, you find it challenging, you don't know how your life is going to change. But if you are not near retirement yet, don't worry, you can also learn a lot from this episode. Nancy will explain how to plan a healthy retirement from a young age, and we will also have a conversation that can inspire you no matter your age. Nancy will explain how to balance your work life and your personal life. We live in a world where sometimes you get carried away with stress and you don't know how to balance your work life and your passions. So make sure to listen to this episode if this is a challenge you encounter. But we will also talk about the concept of happiest years. When are the happiest years? If you want to hear that answer, then make sure to keep on listening. I hope you will enjoy the episode, and if you do, make sure to let me know and to follow me on social media. The Instagram account of the podcast is the life they live underscore podcast. I post more content there, so you might be interested. Hi, Nancy. Welcome on the podcast. Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. I'm very happy to be having this conversation today. We're going to talk about retirement, which is a topic I've never talked about on the podcast. So I'm excited to talk with you today. Could you maybe introduce yourself just in a few words before we start this podcast for the ones that don't know you?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here today. So, my name is Nancy Schwartz, and I'm founder and principal of Envision Healthy Retirement.
Great, thank you very much. Well, then, before we get started, I kind of wanted to ask you more about your passion and what is your passion. As you know, on this podcast, I interview guests on their passion. So I think it would be nice if you just use your own words to tell us what you're passionate about.
Oh, thank you. My passion is my company, which is Envision Healthy Retirement. I've merged two really strong pillars, one of health and retirement. And I have built this company because I needed this company when I was moving from corporate to retirement and I couldn't find it. So I created this new company, which is very exciting. And this company is all about being aligned and balanced in my workflow. I love working, I love operating a company, and I certainly love servicing and being of service and helping clients. So I take the client either early stage, which would be when they're operating, to start thinking about retirement in a healthy manner, right? So it's always with a health-driven, science-based content, and or when they have retired, perhaps they've lost their way, they're just uberly exhausted, perhaps they're fearful, they're just confused. And we have to acknowledge the word retirement, right? You and I've had this conversation before that retirement, if we do global studies, universally, you're in London, you're in Hong Kong, you're in the States, you're in Australia, globally, no one likes this word retirement because it has such a stigma to it, right? And people think, oh, it's an ending, it's the last stop, this is depressing, it's the end of who I knew I was, and that's it. I'm done. I'm toast. And I'm here to say, nah, let's rethink this and let's talk about how we can really think of this as a white paper. And I use all my business skills in helping individuals, wonderful humans, amazing people to create something that's new, right? I use it as a white paper that you can really draw anything that you want. So I talk about helping the clients envision what they want to do. Then we set a plan, right? So we set an operating plan for the human, for the individual, and then we actually actualize it. So my tag on my company is we envision and you soar. So I love that because it shows that this is not an end, and I want to say that this is not a depressive, you could hit your head into a wall type situation, but that it is a new beginning. And so anything is possible that the individual wants. Now, everybody's different. So, Nina, if I live long enough, when you retire, I will help you. And, your ideas will be different than somebody else's ideas, which are different than my ideas. So that's the beauty of it. We're all unique, we're all special, we all can be creative in determining how we have a choice, right? How we want to live our lives. So that's the exciting part, and that's what I love.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I do think it's a topic we don't talk about enough, so that's also why we're doing this episode. And I think it's difficult because a lot of people have a lot of expectations when it comes to their retirement, and like you said, because it's a new beginning, so it's very exciting. But at the same time, because it's not talked about so much, like you said, they don't really have the tools, they don't know where to start. So it's great that you started your company. I'm sure it helps a lot of people, and we're going to talk about your company more in depth for sure. But before, I just wanted to ask you quickly, what is healthy retirement to you? I majored in global public health, and I remember having this assignment in my studies where it was quite simple. I just had to write an essay about what is health, and it was actually quite hard to write because health is so many things. So that's why I'm asking you this question. For you, what is a healthy retirement?
So thank you for that question, Nina. And that's such a great question. And it's kind of funny. I'll tell you a little funny story about myself. I felt I was healthy, right? And I thought that I did all the right things. I exercised, I ate pretty well, I tried to sleep. But what I found over time is that my lifestyle compounded. So, working in a corporation. And so I really suffered. If you really examine what happened to me, I had a lot of stress, both personally as well as in my companies that I worked for over time. And so my way of living became my new normal, except I wasn't even aware that I was so depleted everywhere. So I think of health as a holistic mind, body, and soul. So I think of it very roundly. And of course, everybody's definition for themselves is different. So we have to honor that as well as how people think of it. But I like to present that perspective to people so that they can learn to become balanced and aligned and to do what they want to do in their life, right? So to me, there's foundational pillars. And what's so exciting, let me back up a little bit and say what's so exciting in the marketplace right now, and this is like perfect time, perfect type of company, right? Is that we have a convergence of science and of technology and of the thinking of what is it we can do now? What is it that we can apply to make an impact for us in terms of thinking about longevity, right? So there are foundational pillars that really mesh together. And as we move these foundational pillars, everything sort of slowly starts to change. And that's the transformation that the executives go forward. So, my definition of really health, and I guess it's, is to live absolutely 150% out, right? To live at peak performance and also to make sure that all our systems are in integrity and aligned for many, many years. And there's so much we can do right now um, to support the long range game, the current near term, and then the long range game. So I love moving now. It's very exciting to implement a lot of the science and the technology, and then also to think about it's a constant moving field, right? It's a constant moving field. So to be able to have goals, but then the goal lines keep moving down the playing field, right? So it's constantly, you feel like you're in a movement of curiosity and exploration with your studies, that you can implement on yourself and your family and your friends. So yes, I think of health as very much a broad spectrum of how we look at this.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting, and I think it's nice how you mentioned that your definition of health changed. Or I don't know if your definition of health changed, but at least you recognize that maybe in the past you were suffering from stress, even though you didn't really realize it at that moment. And because now you work with executives, as you said, and plan their retirement, and I think it's a very common situation that during their work life, people are under a lot of stress or experience burnout, and but they normalize it by saying, okay, this is work, work equals stress, and then when I retire, I won't be stressed anymore, and I will do all those things I don't take the time to do right now. What do you think about that? Because I think that adds a lot of pressure to retirement, saying, okay, right now I'm just working, and then when I retired, I will do all those things that I want to do right now, but I cannot do because I have to work.
Right. So let's unpack that because there's a lot of components there. So I love this question. It's a super question. So I think we're living in a very special time, and we have a lot of opportunities right now. Right. So we have the COVID situation, we have the pandemic situation, and from a corporate point of view, or an entrepreneurial point of view, or a professional working situation, we are experiencing many of the younger employees, right, have a different relationship with their employer. And similarly, the same trend is happening with the more senior management also saying, these young kids, they may have an idea. I'm not so sure I want to live like this. But then what's happening, and we're seeing this in the marketplace right now, is we're seeing, oh man, the corporations are actually running out of people. They don't have enough people to work for them. So then what's happening? It's cause and effect, right? So now the companies are saying, wow, we got to retool. We got to retool at the more, junior career level situation. And then also for our senior management or professional individuals. So constantly retooling from the company side. And there is appetite for the employees to learn these new tools. And there is also quite a revenue share, right? The ownership, right, from the employees to the employer. So, yes. So I think that we're seeing a cultural shift, we're seeing a market shift, we're seeing a solution to a global public health situation, what you had talked about in COVID and pandemic. How do we operate? And we're accelerating time, right? We've talked about many of the technology companies are, blasting through the doors. Normally, their products would take years and years of product development. Or look at the drug development companies. Look what they did in a crisis. Extraordinary. It would take 20, 25 years of trials and errors. We were, gunning forward as quickly as possible to solve a problem. And that's the beauty of being human, right? Humans are such amazing people. They're innovative, they're creative, they are solution minded. So it's taking all these external drivers through, and then interchanging that on the individual side and taking all the strengths of the individuals and capitalizing that on the employer side. So I think again, it's an incredible time to be living, and watching the speed at which this is happening, right? I don't ever remember in my lifetime the speed, the acceleration of change and resilience, and that's extraordinary from all sides, from company, employee, regular humans, you know. So you know, everybody's special, everyone's unique, and they all have their own stories, and that's also what's so interesting, and how people approach problems, how they create ideas, and how they respond, right, to stressors and make it into something that's a viable product or a viable solution for themselves in terms of handling this type of stress, right?
Yeah, actually, when you were talking about, moving fast and those cultural shifts, it made me think about the younger generation and a lot of goals that younger individuals have. And for example, I see on social media now a lot of posts such as how to retire at 30, or those kind of posts. And I do feel like it's now more and more common to also start your own company and be your own boss and retire early. So those are changes that I have also observed, and I think it's quite interesting now to want to retire as early as possible, because it's really, I think, like I was talking about earlier, that idea that as long when you're working, you have to focus so much on work, and then when you retire, you have all this time to do those side projects.
Yeah, I think, let me circle back with you and say that I have actually worked with very young entrepreneurs, you know, who have made their, if you will, fortune, and then decided, yeah, I'm going to go do my passion project, whatever it is, right? And they too, despite the age, need to realize that their identity is shifting. They're no longer this person working for someone, they are now becoming the leader, the person who is driving this product, technology, whatever they're up to. And they also need to retool their behaviors and their habits, and figuring out, are they showing up who they want to be in the future, but now it's in the present, right? So we do work very similarly despite the age, because essentially they have retired, right? But they're now just going to a different place of employment, self employment. You know, who knows? Their company may be acquired in a few months or several years. We don't know. But they need the same type of skill sets, that someone who has sustained, you know, 40, 50, 60-year career needs as well. So it's a human condition, right? That we're constantly evolving. And I just don't think that we talk a lot about the fact that we are different, right? We are different. Let's just pretend this arbitrary person, this wonderful human is in their 30s, right? That they were retired. But the same skill sets are needed that maybe perhaps somebody in their 60s or 50s would have. So there is an overlying mesh. And again, it's lack of information, lack of education, lack of time spent. We spend so much time in the financial markets preparing for all these products, right? That Nina, you're a young gun, so you need to put away every penny so that when you retire in 40 years, you will have a golden pot, right? So we hear that, but we don't hear in the marketplace, Nina, you need to also focus on your individual person as well. So that's what I do. I don't focus on the financial side. I focus more on the individual side. But I am here to say that the person is the most important piece of the equation. Yes, money is very important. We have to have a roof. We need food. You know, we need all of that. But the person is really the most important piece of the equation. And I'm really here to, and I think we've talked about this, disrupt the way we think about retirement. Because again, we don't talk about it. It's quiet. Oh, Nina, I know a secret. I'm not going to tell you. But we need to start spreading this information, because it should be just common information that can be used as a tool to support people during these transition, right, transformational moments, peak experiences for people, um, albeit whether you're in your 30s, your 50s, 60s, 70s, 40s, it's the same situation.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. You're talking also about, breaking the stereotypes when it comes to retirement, and as you've mentioned, I'm sure for a lot of people, it's hard, that transition and changing their identity in a sense, because I can imagine, I'm just taking a random example, but if you've been a doctor for 30 or plus years and then suddenly you retire, okay, it's like, okay, when I present myself to others now, what do I say? What's my story? How do I introduce myself to others? How what what do I feel about myself? What are my projects? So I can imagine that that's a lot of questions, and that they can be hard to answer. So could you tell us maybe a bit more about your company, Envision Healthy Retirement, and how you work with clients? How do you help them when they have these kind of identity struggles?
Yeah, no, this is great. And it's so funny that you picked a doctor because I just got a call from someone who's 80, who has retired, who is a physician. It's hilarious. So, yes, so identified as this incredible scientist helping the community. Oh my goodness, the things that this gentleman has done is just extraordinary. But all of a sudden, he decided to retire for whatever reason. And wow, you know, when people change from, as you talk about, who they were, right? It's a label. We identify ourselves as a label. He's now saying, and I'm asking and prompting him the question, who are you now? That requires tremendous reflection. And so, what I say is that this is a process, right? And it takes time. And time requires internal work and reflection. So, we always talk about building an algorithm, right? So, we're looking at different belief systems, different value systems. We're different, right? We're different. And then establishing behaviors and habits that will support who do we want to be, right? So we have to create we can change it. When I start, some people say I want to do this or that, and it morphs over time, over the 12-week process. But essentially, we have to start somewhere. We have to get on the road, and we accept the client as who they are right now, and then we slowly move this person forward, all the while supported by healthy retirement behaviors and habits. So putting that person first and saying, you are the most important person right now. And we've got to figure out who you are and who are you becoming. And from that road, they can move forward. So we look at personal growth. We look at, what do we do with the time? Now, for instance, this physician, my goodness, on call constantly, 24 hours, holidays, nights, you know, tremendous amount of time. And then all of a sudden you don't have a calendar and a schedule. People feel like they're in free fall, right? They're lost, right? They're totally lost. So we start calendaring and creating a schedule, and we're building out an infrastructure that they had before, but it's a new infrastructure. Then we talk about the mind body connection and how it's all interwoven, right? We talked about this before, that I think of it very much as a holistic system that supports. We can rewire our brains now. We can rewire our bodies now. Science is just so amazing. We're at the cellular level looking at, 30 trillion cells that we have, that we need to support, that are constantly moving and renewing within us, right? Then I look at a piece that's really fundamental, non financial finance, which I talk about as it relates to instruments, financial instruments, so trusts, wills, power of attorney, health side, healthcare proxies. I'm sure you have similar instruments in Europe, that are so important. And most people don't want to put their name to it, because they feel like that you're kind of create it feels very real to you when you sign these documents, that time is short. Time is short, right? But I say, and so therefore people just say, I'm going to get to that later. I'm just not going to do it today. And then later becomes 20 years later, they still have it in draft form. They haven't really done anything. And what I say is look at it from the perspective of you are going to set up these instruments and create and communicate to those people who are in your inner circle your wishes. And by doing that, you can help support those people who will be helping you down the road. And so by shifting that perspective away from the person and onto the people that will be helping you has really helped my clients see that this is possible. And also to communicate. We don't communicate. Nina, I'm not going to tell you where my stuff is. And yeah, you're just going to have to be on your own. And good luck. And I've been in those situations as power of attorney where I'm like, oh my God, where do I start? I don't even know where to start. But if I have that communication with you, you're going to say to me, oh my goodness, thank goodness she told me in this drawer, I'm going to find whatever. Or I'm in a medical situation with Nancy. So I know she said certain things. I want to honor that of that person. So now I feel very clear in giving the doctors information that will help provide a good solution for the family and for the patient, right? So these are really critical steps. And then we look at relationships, right? Relationships are so important and communities, particularly during COVID and the pandemic, but to have multi generational people in your life, right? So not just older people, not just younger people, not just kind of middle, but multi-generational. They're finding the science is very much behind having the full spectrum of friends. They will give you different perspectives. You'll have new friends, older friends, interesting new communities, the communities that you've always belonged to. So to have a really well-rounded base um, to support you in your journey, right? And then my final part, which is my favorite part, is curiosity, to have curiosity and exploration in life. And I think, I love being around people that are curious because they're energetic. They'll try something. Oh, well, it blew up. Okay, turn around, we'll try something else. Or I'm really curious about this. Oh, how does that work exactly? I love being around people like that versus people who are very depressive and will never try anything new because they're stuck, right? They're stuck in the past. And we've talked about that. So to have that appetite for life, really, it's appetite for life. So those are the six pillars that we talk about, and we take them through a progression of experiential exercises and worksheets and dialogue on a weekly basis. So it's fun, it's creative, and at the end of the day, the human is on their way through transformation. So it's a very cool process. It's very cool.
Yes, there's a lot to talk about for sure, and it's definitely helpful to that you talked about those six pillars. It helps us understand your company and what work you do. And I just want to say also, I think it's great that you talked about transformation at any age. Doesn't matter if you're 20, 40, 80, that you can transform your life. And I think that's a great message to share also, that transformation doesn't have an age. And so you talked about those pillars and how you work with clients. I just wanted to ask you also, because a few minutes ago I asked you about identity. We talked about identity a lot. And I think that's one of the main uh, challenges that your clients encounter. Are there other maybe challenges that they encounter when they retire that we didn't talk about, that are quite common amongst your clients?
Well, I think identity is a product of many different components, right? So I think we look at belief systems. Is it true today And belief systems are usually formed in very, very younger years. And most people really, to be quite honest, don't update their belief systems until they realize, oh wow, why am I thinking about that? Why am I saying that? Is this really true? So we look at that across a full spectrum of your life's wheel, right? Which is inclusive of many things. Value systems is huge as well. Strengths, as well as behaviors and habits. So there's multi components that go into somebody's identity. But yes, I love the fact that you talk about that you can transform at any age. And that's the adaptability of a human, right? That's the adaptability. So, yes, you can be 15, you can be 45, you can be 125, right? Or someday maybe humans will live even longer than that. But yes, we are capable of this transformation. It's a matter of the will and the belief from that person that they will do the work and they have appetite to move forward. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Well, that's very interesting. For sure, that's a topic also that I found very interesting. As I told you when we were preparing this episode, I'm really interested in gerontology and aging and longevity. So that's a great conversation for me, and I'm really happy to learn more. Thanks to you. And also, I know there's a tool that's very important in your company. So I don't know if maybe you want to talk more about it. It's the U planning. I don't know. Yeah, if you want to say more
Sure.
about
No,
that.
thank you. Thank you for that. Well, I think we've talked about, the marketplace, right? And there's such a void of information, particularly positive information and information that's very, could be supportive to people. And so, what I realized very quickly on in creating my company is that one, there's complete lack of information. Two, it's very secretive. I'm not going to share with you, Nina. No, 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 no. And then three, people get into trouble. People are in trouble. And so, why not mitigate that? Why not provide the information? And why not say, start thinking about this? So, this is exactly what I've done. It's a tiny little educational tool that I am sharing called U Planning. And basically, the components are, own you and you planning and move you, right? So in planning, we plan for everything. You and I, we plan for this meeting. We plan to do something on the weekend. We plan a career. We plan a family. We don't plan for retirement. Why is that? So that's the thought process there. Own you is about you are responsible for all of you, your actions, and you. And so I look at this from a perspective of personal growth, right? So I champion all of Carol Dweck's knowledge and information that she shared. And I think it's so important to have that component in your life of to champion learning. And this tool helps support you when life derails, and life always does derail. We've got curves and it's never a straight line, right? And supports us through really challenging setbacks that we persevere. We have that resilience component. And then it's about moving you. So what and people always go, oh, Nancy, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to do any more push-ups at the gym. I'm done with that. And I'm like, no, no, no. No, no, no. It's about the mind. It's about the body, and it's about your sort of bigger universe, right? So, what does your mind need today? And it's finding that balance and that alignment. What does your body need today? And then what is your, if you will, your soul need today? Not from a religious point of view, but more, honoring that space of you. So, my clients have found this when they start thinking about these things, and I sort of talk them through these to create action points for my clients. They're really more have more appetite for the 12-week program. They understand now the significance of really transforming themselves from who they were to who they want to be, and have the life that they want, that they are owning and so deserve after all these years of working.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. So I think now we have a clear idea even of what work to you do. So that's so great. And I didn't ask you also why it was so important to you on a personal level to found this company, because um even though that's a topic you're interested about, I can imagine that there was maybe more of a personal goal behind this company.
Sure. So yes, absolutely. So twofold. When I was operating, I looked for a company like this. I couldn't find one, right? So I couldn't find this. And secondly, I'm really interested in science, and I'm really interested in the convergence of science and technology because I think they're very, very similar. And I didn't even know really about longevity and all these incredible things that all these incredible MD, PhDs are discovering longer term. And so when I came upon these topics, I thought, man, let's put this all together, right? Because I took some retirement classes. My gosh, they were so, I felt like I was banging my head on the wall. It was so depressing and so not life giving, right? And so tactical, yes, informative, quasimodo. But when you can combine life, which is your health, with an operation, which is the transforming of into retirement, and you could go run another company, you could be on a board. It's endless possibilities. So for me, I found it important to create something for me so I could figure this out. And ultimately, I decided I love to work and I love to have a company again, but on my own terms, right? On my own terms that support my values, my belief systems, and honor me to give myself time, right? As well as to be able to share it with my friends, my family, and certainly clients that I serve. So yes, you nailed it on that question.
Yeah, that's great that you had this idea and founded this company, and that it serves your clients, but also for you that it makes you learn and have the same thing with the podcast, that of course I do it so that the listeners can hear those inspiring stories, but also me, I learn a lot from it. So that's also a win-win situation, if I may say so. That's very interesting. And I'm just kind of wondering. I had this question that came up when you started this company, because as we said, it's a topic that's not talked about so much. Retirement, um, in your surroundings, or in the how can I say, the reactions you got, were people kind of surprised about that company project, or not necessarily? What outside opinions did you
Yeah.
get?
So when you create a company, you have to do market surveys, right? So I went out to the market of all the people, not all the people, but many people that I knew. And you validate the idea before you launch full boat in. And even today, people say it's universal. Wow, that's a great idea. I never thought of that. Wow. And so I knew I had hit gold because it so resonated with me and my friends and my colleagues. And it is something that is lacking in the world. And I want to offer this to people because it's so tangible and so real and can make such an impact on a client's life. And ultimately, with the client, there's ripple effects. So it affects their friends and families because they talk about it. So I've had many occasions where the clients say, "Oh, my sister is loving this because I just taught her this." Or my friend did this. There, she's going to call you, but I taught her this part of your program. So it's joyous, right? It's absolutely joyous. So and also I think it's the market timing, right? We are learning, again, I go back to that science and technology and longevity. We're learning so much. And why not have accessibility to all this information for people? So yeah, yeah, it's just I'm so lucky at this stage of the game, and I just feel I feel very welcome in the marketplace and with my clients to be able to share this, right? To be able to share this journey with them for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's great to hear. And yeah, to come back to this idea of longevity and aging, it's true that it's a shame that it's so taboo, because at the end, we all age, and longevity is a topic that is concerns all of us, if I may say. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have an explanation as to why it's so taboo? I don't know if that's the best word to use.
You know, I okay. Let this is a great question. So let's unpack this. Why is it taboo, right? And so it's a cultural thing, I think. In many societies, we think about aging as an honored and revered member of society, that they've lived many years, that they have wisdom. And in other cultures, we're like, ugh, throw that person away. That they're just old. They're just old. So I think there's now convergence on the thinking that it's it's scary for people, right? It's very scary for people looking at, if you go into nursing homes or into hospital situations, it's very scary. So people are backing away from this. And now what we're learning is that aging, we know this. David Sinclair from Harvard has said this, and many other global influencers in health and science, that aging is a disease. It's not something that happens to you. And we can do many things for us to keep our health in check, right? Uh, Starting now, so that when we get to a more longevity, either chronological or biological age, we will be intact, right? So we now have data, right, to support certain methodologies, technologies, tools that can help us. And so potentially, I think that we should not be so afraid of this, that this is something that is universal, right? I mean, this is a universal quantum. Maybe someday, maybe you, Nina, will live long enough that life is suspended for a very long time, right? Um, so I don't think it needs to have that fear factor. And I think that sometimes when people don't understand things, it becomes very taboo, right? And I think we're beginning to understand this, and the information is being now given to the people at large, right? This is not just I'm shut away in a setting, in a company, or in a university, huge laboratory where these amazing people are working, that we are being able to have dialogues about this. I mean, I can remember as a very very young child being taken to see my grandmother in the hospital, and wow, very scary, machines going off, creepy people. I thought, I interpret that. It was very scary as a child going in. New, strange things, very institutional looking. But I think now we have, as we are living more in the whole, we have data, and data is always great. I like to qualify and quantify things and measure it, right? So that we can remove this taboo and make it a conversation of the ages, of the generations. And I know you've told me some amazing stories of what you've done and your family have done. And I just think, your family and you rock, because you're miles ahead of what other people um, do, because you have an understanding. You have an understanding.
Yeah, actually, you asked me this question when we were preparing the episode. Why am I so interested, in aging? And it's a question I don't know how to answer it. I don't really know the answer. I don't know why. But I think a part of me is just simply because it also concerns me. I think I understand that it concerns me, in the sense that I hope, to age and to live long. So I know that it will happen. So I think that's why I'm like, okay, well, if I take action now, the results in few years will also impact me, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I think that's also one of the reasons. But yeah, I don't know, from like a very young age, when I was 10 or so, I used to tell my parents, can we go to the retirement house to, see the people living there. I don't know, it's just something that's always been interesting to me, but I don't think there's a very clear explanation for that. um but yeah, like you said, I do think it's important for the young generation also to recognize that it's a topic that concerns them, and it doesn't have to be scary or negative, that it's a joyful feel. It's a joyful thing, sorry, also. And yeah, and actually, when doing a bit of research for this episode, I realized, I think it's interesting, because when we talk of the concept of happiest years, everyone has their own answers. Some say, oh, my 20s were my happiest years. Some say my 40s or my 50s or whatever. And I've seen some research also saying, I think there's probably different answers depending on the research. But I've seen some saying that the 80s are the happiest years. So I think it's also good to see it that way, and not to think, okay, when I'm gonna grow older, maybe it's going to be more challenging, but to be no, like, there's something to look forward to. And when retirement comes, it's not the end. On the opposite, it's a beginning. It's what we've been talking during this whole episode. And I wanted to talk to you a bit about that also, that concept of the happiest years. And yeah, how to be positive when you retire and keep that attitude.
Mm-hmm. So yes, so we have studies here in the States, what they call decade studies. What are your strengths? What are your components? Happiness is included. I think this is a two-pronged question, and I'm going to answer it that way if that's okay with you. I think that happiness is a challenging word because happiness is a emotion that is not always shared by everyone. So if you're more of an extrovert, the possibility of happiness is compounded. And if you're more of an introvert, you may be happy, but you're not showing the traditional signage of this happiness, right? So, and then there is the commercial pressure. Uh, this country is the happiest country. This corporation is the happiest place to be. This city is where it's happening, and this is the happiest beach you can be on. This kind of stuff. So I think it's very overused. And we also know from a science point of view that happiness ebbs and flows. Nobody is happy, 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 happy. It ebbs and flows with the day. It's just the way the emotion works, right? So, and I've been thinking a lot about this, and this is a really good question because what I've discovered in my research is that many introverts and even extroverts feel very fulfilled and satisfied if they use the word I'm content or I'm very grateful or I have gratitude towards. And those emotions are gateway emotions, right? They are gateway emotions towards happiness, right? So I would offer that to those in your audience and who are listening that it can cause a lot of stress by people saying, why am I not happy? Everybody's happy and I'm not getting there. What is everybody else doing that I'm not doing? And you can find happiness in your life, but it's your own interpretation. So I think everybody has their own interpretation. And I think it's an awareness, right? So that's one side. And then let's get back to this decade study, right? So I'm a believer that we can rewire our brains, right? And so I think on the one hand, it's very good to look back 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever it may be. In your case, probably teens, early 20s, right? To look back, where have I been? But not to dwell in that, but to just say, I was there and I'm here now. What have I learned? What actions can I take to move myself forward even more? But often in these studies, we tend to sit back there. We live back in, I was at a party the other day and this guy was expounding, well, when I was in high school, I did the touchdown. Well, hello, he wasn't in high school, but he was living in high school, right? So it can be dangerous that way, right? And so I say, and if you ask me this question, what decade was I the happiest? I would say to you, I'm the happiest right now because I'm living in the now, in the present tense. And I think that rewiring and being able to say that I am here now, I am in this moment, can be very joyous for people, right? That they're experiencing something very, very special. And so people can find moments in each day where they truly are balanced, aligned, and in the now. So if you were to ask me that question, I'm content now. I'm present with you, right? So I know I've kind of run around your question a little bit, but I think there's components here, right, that need more thought for each individual, right? There really is no one way to think about it, right? There's the thought process of, you know, is do I identify, let's help the audience here, do I identify with this component of happiness, and can I reference times in prior decades, right? And then so maybe I know that maybe I'm more of this gateway, maybe I'm more of the gratitude or the content piece of it, or I ebb and flow, I recognize that. And then can I live in the now? Can I be present in the now? And a lot of things can be discovered while you are here. Be here now, right? I had a beautiful Buddhist ballet teacher years ago, and he always said, "Be here now." And I thought that was such a wonderful statement. So I leave you with that response for your question.
That's great, and I'm glad you mentioned that you prefer the word content and happy, because I think those conversations are um, interesting, and they lead to how can I say, also, like, reflection. I'm definitely going to reflect also on what you said, and I'm sure some listeners will too. I do agree with you with the fact that thinking of the happiest years can be also a cause of stress, because if you're you know now in your 20s and you think, oh, when I was a child it was the good years, everything was easy. Now I'm not a child anymore. What is that going to bring you? Not much. And if you're, I don't know, in your 40s and you think my 20s were the best, now uh I don't know what to think about my 40s. And then I just think it adds a lot of stress to think, also now, for example, I'm in my 20s. If someone comes and tells me the 20s are the best years, it's like, okay, so what do I have to do now then, if the 20s are the best years? So I do think, like you said, just living the now is the best advice. But also, what I wanted to say is that I do think it's important to think of the future also as a possibility for happiness. I don't know if that's a good way to say it. Usually I think when people think of the word happy, they think of their earlier years, not their later years. I don't know, maybe you disagree with me on that, but to conclude what I wanted to say, I do agree with you. It's important to live in the present, but I do think it's also important to look forward for your future years.
Yes, no, I totally agree. And if you move forward, you're here now. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. So thank you for that conversation. And I think it was nice also that we talked a little bit about the young generation and retirement. That's also a topic I wanted to bring up in this episode because I think it's an important one. And to go back maybe a bit to you, you explained why you founded that company, but I also wanted to ask you a bit about what your passion for your company, how did it impact your well-being and what you've learned from it? Because as you know, that's also a link I do in the podcast, a link between passion and wellness. And because I do think passions can have a lot of impact, they can, help to overcome fears, or they can help to grow, find a purpose, or whatever it may be. So yeah, if you could answer that, that
Yeah.
would be great.
So, how does my passion impact my wellness, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I think I just got so lucky, right? So I was really struggling. I was not happy. I was chronically stressed, as I suggested, in both my personal and my corporate world. I felt questions bubbling up in me like, man, is this all there is to life? Who am I exactly? Is this it? Just, trying to work 24/7 for so many years, and I realized that the way I was living is just simply not sustainable, right? It's just not sustainable. I felt very broken. I felt like beyond exhausted. I was so exhausted, I didn't know I was so exhausted, right? It was one of those types of things. And I realized that the passion I had is really this combination, this company, which is combining the health and retirement. And over time, because I spent so many years educating myself, um, 5 years out educating myself from global influencers in health and retirement and taking classes, and learning so much, right? And continuing to learn because the field is just starting. So there's so many. I've joined many business and health mentorships. The most brilliant minds. I have the wonderful opportunity to be part of these things. And so for me, it's a passion that I am constantly um, having appetite for, but at the same time, then I can share it with tremendous generosity to my clients and people who I just meet who happen to, maybe they just call me. So I feel I can have impact on many people in a small way or perhaps in a bigger way. It's really surprising to me, Nina. I mean, I'll meet people on the street. I'll have very serious, long conversations with clients who, or potentially those people on the street have become my clients. Um, but it's interesting how the world kind of comes around, right? So I think we're at the beginning of something very exciting. And so, therefore, there's so much more to learn that, therefore, my passion grows every year because there's more. There's just more.
Great. Well, it's great also that you said that you share your passion with your clients, because that's also the goal of the podcast, right? To share your passion with the listeners, and to inspire others. So it's great that you say that. And yeah, like you said, also passions grow, and I'm sure in a few years you can give us an update on the podcast. You probably have also other information to share with us. So it's always a learning experience. And on that podcast, it's words that often come, like almost in every episode, I think, is really learning and curiosity. So I think that's very linked also with the word passion. So yeah, it's very interesting. And I also wanted to ask you to kind of conclude this episode. What what do you think the what do you think is the role of passions during retirement? Because I think that would be a good way to link retirement and passions. Of course, I'm sure, like we've mentioned it in this episode, that for a lot of people, retirement is the time they dedicate to passion. So, yeah, I just wanted to ask you that question. What role do you think passions have?
Yeah, so that's a great question, but I'm going to change the question a little bit, and I'm going to say if I could link passion with healthy retirement. So that's what I'm going to do. So, um, passion is life. right? And so life over time is healthy retirement. And so I think that living absolutely full out, not at 100%, but 150%, also living at peak performance, finding something that's more than you. So, a quest, something where you can help other people, right? And starting today, start creating your legacy, right? People always think of legacy as like, oh, at the end, Nina, you're going to get a pot of gold, or you're going to get I don't know, my tiara from when I was dancing, or, whatever it was. But no, I believe that a legacy can be started now and even in your 20s. So, what are you building towards? And so, I think that that is an exciting thing, not something that is more of a dead end. So, passion to me is just about living your fullest and your most extraordinary life, to have the experiences you want, and to be completely at your top performance in health and retirement, while finding your higher quest, right? Something that is bigger than you, to be out in the world, while um, putting together the little ripples that start a bigger motion in terms of your legacy.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer, yeah, to say that if you cultivate your passion starting now, no matter how old you are, that at the end it will impact and lead to a healthy retirement. I think that's a great link. So thank you for saying that. That's very inspiring for sure. And yeah, I don't know if you have maybe a last word you would like to share before we finish this episode.
Sure. Can I share where people can find me?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. So, easiest way to find me is on my website, which is envisionhealthyretirement.com. So, envisionhealthyretirement.com. And there you can set up a complimentary discovery call with me. And I also have a free download, which is all about sleep. Everybody could use a little bit more sleep. So I look forward to interacting with your audience. And if I can answer any questions, please reach out. And thank you, Nina. You're wonderful. And I so appreciate being part of your audience and being with you today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I knew when we started talking that this would be a great conversation, and I'm glad we had it. Just to add on a little bit, the clients, can they, do you have consultations online? Can it be from everywhere in the
Oh,
world?
yes. Oh, yes. So I do everything by Zoom.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this is the beauty of this, that I can work globally and don't have to get on planes and boats and trains, and
Hmm.
similar for my clients. So Zoom is a wonderful technology. And yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to mention that, so if anyone is interested, they know they can reach out to you. And thank you very much for this conversation. I'm glad we got to talk a bit more about longevity and aging, but that you also gave advice and talked about your company. I think it was a very complete episode, and it it gave me food for thoughts, as we say. So I hope it did the same for the listeners. And yeah, I'm looking forward to also follow your project and see how your passion will grow, as we were talking about. And I thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on the podcast. I hope it will be inspiring for the ones that were listening. So I do want to say also thank you for everyone listening to this episode. You can find the podcast on all major platforms and on Instagram at the life they live underscore podcast. Don't hesitate to leave a review and to contact me or Nancy if you have any feedback or if you would like to ask us any questions. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening to this episode, and thank you again, Nancy, for featuring as a guest on my podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you.
Lovely
Goodbye.
today. Thank
See,
you.
thank you. See you on the next episode.
Absolutely.